probably people waiting for us. I'm just going to begin. Reading from Ramayana. Okay. You're ready, right? Ramayana. What's your favorite pastime in Ramayana? What's your favorite pastime in Ramayana?
The war part.
The war part.
Yeah.
Which part of the war part? Is there some part?
Where Hanuman guides the arrow, the Ram throws the arrow and the Hanuman guides it onto the Ravana.
Ooh, that's a different version of Ramayana that I've read. The one that kills Ravana,
Yes, that's right.
Hanuman guides the arrow.
No, the Rama fires the arrow.
Yeah.
But the arrow is not supposed to go under the belly, under the belt. But Hanuman guides it there so that it goes onto the, where the
Naval.
Amrit was, so that otherwise he wouldn't die. Belly button, yeah.
Huh.
I mean, the whole of war part was the most interesting part.
Okay, let me share something with you just on this. There's a commentator who wrote a verse when Ram pulled his bow, ready to fire the arrow that would kill Ravan. He contemplated where to shoot the arrow. This is different. And he considered, I won't shoot in the heart of Ravan, because he, by his lust, has Sita in his heart, and I don't want to shoot Sita. And in the heart of Sita is me. And in the heart of me is the whole universe. So I don't want to destroy the whole universe. I just want to destroy Ravan. This is in Sanskrit. I'm just summarizing. So I'll shoot his navel, Nabi. No, Hanuman guided it. How about you? What's your favorite?
I like the Diwali part when he comes back and everybody's happy.
When they come back.
Yeah,
After winning the war.
Yeah.
when he comes along with Sita to Ayodhya.
Uh-huh.
I love that part. That's the best part.
Is there some part of that part, like meeting the three mothers, or greeted by the citizens, or the spectacle of lights, or what part of that return? Greeting with Bharata, everything.
Yeah, because every moment it is just happiness around and all are together and citizens are happy, king is happy, brothers, sisters happy, everybody is happy.
When I had never been to Ayodhya before, about 3-4 years ago. When we did a yatra visiting Ayodhya and Chitrakoot, one of the places we went was the name of I forget the name of the place where Bharata stayed in a hut some distance from the city, or from the capital. So when Ram is returning, he halts the Pushpaka Vimana and sends Hanuman to see, because he's a really good, what's the word? Not a spy, but he's good minister. He's good at understanding people's minds. So Ram sent Hanuman to see. Maybe by now, after 14 years, Bharat wants to be the king, and that's fine if he wants to be the king. And Bharat is, wow, Ram, let's go greet Ram. That's the beginning of the happy. And then the next and the next. Okay, so we're in the Karuna Rasa section where Ram discovers that Sita has been kidnapped. Karuna Rasa, we discussed this yesterday. We're going to hear it because it's like sadness after sadness and extreme sadness. It's a secondary rasa. It's not really sadness as we know sadness. It's an ecstasy. Anyway, secondary rasas, according to the science of rasa, Rupa Goswami. You know who is Rupa Goswami? No idea, right? You know who is Lord Chaitanya, right? Lord Chaitanya. His next in line of disciplic succession is Rupa Goswami. He's one of 6 Goswamis that resided in Vrindavan. Lord Chaitanya instructed him thoroughly in the science of rasa, the taste of bhakti rasa. And in his book, he describes there are 5 primary rasas and 7 secondary rasas. And the function of the secondary rasas, and there's variations of those, is to nourish the primary rasa. So one of those secondary rasas is called Karuna Rasa. Now, Karuna, one translation of Karuna is compassion. Karuna. And another, when one is feeling compassion for another, one may feel sorrow. It's a variation on the theme of compassion.
Karuna is basically hairy heart.
Okay. So you know the meaning.
Yeah.
And that's again and again and again. It starts from the very, very beginning when Valmiki sees the Nishada firing an arrow and hitting one of the Krancha birds. He feels Karuna Rasa. And then, that's the flavor, because Rupa Goswami teaches, listen to this, each of the rasas, there's a presiding deity, and the presiding deity of Karuna Rasa is Ram. Ooh. So Ram's Leela is filled with primary rasas, different, but a big one that enhances the primary rasa is Karuna Rasa. He's the Lord of Karuna Rasa. So here we go. He's going to dive into Karuna Rasa. Ram raced towards his hermitage. He was filled with foreboding. As he crashed through the bushes, he heard a jackal's fierce yell behind him. Recognizing the evil omen, he became even more anxious. Had Sita been devoured by the Rakshasas? Lakshman must have left her. When he heard Maricha's cry, Sita would have insisted upon it. The Rakshasas had plotted successfully. Surely they had now taken Sita. Ram saw other frightful omens, and his mind became even more distressed. As he rushed through the forest, he suddenly saw Lakshmana coming toward him. Ram ran to him and took hold of his hand. He spoke sternly, "My dear brother, what have you done? You have abandoned the helpless Sita? Without doubt, she is now dead or stolen by the Rakshasas." Ram pointed out to Lakshmana the various omens. He told about Maricha's trickery. It was now obvious. The Rakshasas had arranged everything so they could abduct Sita. Tears flowed from Ram's eyes as he thought of his wife. If she were killed, he would give up his own life. Desperately, he asked Lakshmana, "Did you fail to protect her? Where's that gentle lady who willingly gave up every happiness to follow me here? Where is Sita now? You should know that I cannot live without her for even a moment." Feeling dispirited, Lakshmana replied, "I did not leave Sita willingly. Urged by her strong and painful words, I came looking for you. She would by no means allow me to stay with her. Forgive me, my lord." Lakshmana explained everything to Ram, how he had tried hard to convince Sita of Ram's invincibility, how she had accused him of having ulterior motives. But Ram only became angry and reprimanded him. Why had he taken Sita's words seriously when she was overwhelmed by sentiment? Why had he allowed himself to fall prey to anger? He had failed to carry out Ram's order. Now they would surely meet calamity. Ram turned and continued to run towards his hermitage, his mind fixed on Sita. As Ram ran, he felt tremor run through his limbs. His left eye throbbed violently, greatly perturbed by these baleful omens. Ram crashed through the forest. He seemed almost to fly, oblivious of the creepers and bushes which lashed him. Breaking into the clearing where he had his hermitage, he ran about wildly looking for Sita. He called her name again and again, but On finding no sign of her, his heart sank. Karuna Rasa. Ram examined the hut and the surrounding grounds closely. It resembled a lotus flower. Blighted by winter and deprived of its charm, the trees seemed to cry as they creaked in the wind. The flowers appeared faded and dull. Deer and birds were restless and ill at ease. Ram saw blades of kusha grass scattered around, along with flower petals fallen from Sita's garland. He wailed loudly, "Surely Sita has been snatched away! Or perhaps she lies dead somewhere. Or has she gone out playfully, hiding now in sport?" Ram searched frantically, but Sita was nowhere to be found. He feared the worst. This was surely the work of the Rakshasas. Even now, Sita must be in their clutches. Ram imagined Sita as she was carried away. She must have cried out for him in plaintive tones. She was borne upwards, her beautiful face streaked with tears. Fear would have gripped that timid princess. Perhaps at that very moment she was being devoured by demons who were cutting open her soft neck and drinking her blood. Oof. Ah, oof. As Ram ran from tree to tree, his eyes red from sorrow, he appeared almost crazy. He questioned the trees. "Oh, Kadamba, oh, Bilva, oh, Arjuna tree, where's Janaka's frail daughter? Is she alive or not?" The madness of grief, in the madness of grief, he spoke to animals, the river, the sky, and the earth itself, but they all remained silent, heightening Ram's anguish. The forest and river deities, remembering Ravana's frightful form, were petrified with fear and could make no reply. As Ram gazed around, it seemed to him that he saw Sita in the sights of the forest. The yellow flowers looked like her silk garment. The creepers, flowing in the wind, became her limbs. Ram thought he saw his beloved wife everywhere. He ran towards her, crying, but found only the desolate and echoing forest. There's another nice teaching in Rupa Goswami's writing. He gives a nice definition of raga. Raga, it exists in the material world as a reflection of what exists in the spiritual world. But when that raga is attached to transcendence, then one sees transcendence everywhere. It's likened to color. Supposing, I mean, he doesn't give this example, but commentators, supposing you have rose-colored glasses, then everything looks rose-colored. So one who has raga for a person, the supreme person, his dear devotee, one sees that person everywhere, wherever you look. Something reminds you of that person, like the gopis towards Krishna, whatever it was like that, raga. Ram rebuked himself for leaving Sita. What would he say to Kaushalya? How could he even look at Janaka, that ever-truthful monarch? Ram felt as if he would die. But then what would his father say upon seeing him arrived in heaven, killed by grief? Surely the emperor would reproach him for becoming a liar or by not completing the term of his exile. Ram lamented piteously, "I shall never return to Ayodhya. Kaikeyi may rejoice, her purpose fulfilled. O Lakshmana, you should embrace Bharata and tell him to long roll over the wide earth, for Ram is no more. Without Sita, I shall not accept even heaven. What then of this world? With Sita's death has come mine. For failing to protect that gentle princess, I shall reach unending regions of hell." Ram fell weeping to the ground. He censured himself in many ways. Surely this awful misfortune was the result of sinful acts performed in a past life. It was undoubtedly his destiny. Such suffering, the loss of his kingdom, separation from his loved ones, the king's death, and now Sita's loss, could only have been caused by his own past evil deeds. Ram tossed about in pain. And this, and again, the explanation, because it's really hard to read all this or hear it. It's a type of ecstasy, which doesn't feel like ecstasy. It feels like the opposite. But it's a stimulation of the primary rasa by the secondary rasa. So it's a type of ecstasy. Just bear that in mind as we go along, because it's really hard. Seeing Ram's agony, Lakshman, himself gripped by despondency, approached his brother and said, "Do not give way to despair, O mighty prince. Men of your caliber are never bewildered by even the greatest disaster. We shall yet find Sita. She cannot be far away. It is less than an hour since I left her. Let us continue our search." Ram composed himself and got up. He sighed and gazed about, wondering which way to go. As he looked at the seat outside his hut, he remembered how he had sat there with Sita by his side, how they had talked and laughed together, how she had teased him, pretending to be hurt by his words, or cajoling him to fetch a particular flower from deep in the woods. As he thought about his lotus-eyed wife, Rama's grief rose in repeated waves. A couple of large deer came close to the brothers. Ram asked if they had seen Sita. The deer then stood with their heads pointed toward the south. Ram and Lakshman took that as a clue and sped off in that direction. They soon came upon a trail of flowers fallen on the ground. Ram dropped to his knees and picked up the petals. They were from the braid on Sita's hair. He cried out, resounding voice, "Sita! Sita!" The two brothers kept running. Suddenly they saw enormous footprints, probably of a Rakshasa. Near to it were Sita's footprints, going here and there, as she evidently ran in fear. As they looked about, they found a huge bow lying in pieces, along with many fearsome arrows tipped with blue steel barbs. A chariot lay smashed there, still yoked to great mules with goblin heads, some of which had been torn off in what was obviously a terrible fight. The headless body of the charioteer still sat holding the reins and whip. There were strands of gold fallen from Sita's ornaments, along with her crushed garland. Ram pointed to the ground. "See here, many drops of blood. Look at these shattered weapons, and this mighty bow encrusted with pearls and gems. Whose chariot is this, with its 100-ribbed canopy torn apart? Look over there, glowing red armor studded with emeralds and rubies. All these items can only belong to gods or demons." Ram fell to the ground, wailing piteously, "Oh, Lakshman, it is clear that Sita is dead. Here, at this place, two Rakshasas fought for her sake. The victor would surely have consumed my darling wife. Alas, I'm lost." Lakshman carefully examined the scene. There had obviously been an encounter between two very powerful beings. Perhaps Ram was right. From the footprints, there did not appear to be more than one Rakshasa. Lakshman felt that somehow Sita is still living. He reassured Ram, telling him to take heart, for Sita would surely soon be recovered. As he checked his grief, Ram felt consumed by anger. Another wave, another secondary rasa. The corners of his eyes turned coppery as he stood holding his bow. The Rakshasa race will soon be extinct. They have borne away Sita even as she practiced virtue. How did the gods stand by and allow this to happen? Do they not fear my wrath? Do they think I am powerless? For too long I have been mild and compassionate. Today the world will see a different Ram. Ram roared, giving vent to his anger. He would fill the heavens with his missiles. With his weapons, he would annihilate the entire creation. All living beings would find themselves oppressed as he discharged endless flaming arrows. The planets would be brought to a standstill, the sun obscured, and the moon brought down from the sky. The mountains would lie crushed to a powder, and the oceans would be dried up. If the gods did not bring back Sita, they would find no shelter anywhere in the universe. All the worlds would be torn to pieces by Ram's arrows, and nothing would remain. A blazing fire would range through all quarters, leaving total devastation in its wake. I don't know the Sanskrit term, but that's another secondary rasa. Ram tightened his clothes. His lips trembled, and he pressed them against his teeth, looking at like Shiva, intent upon the destruction of the universe at the end of an age. Taking from his quiver a dreadful-looking arrow, he placed it upon his bow. Today I shall not be checked by conciliation or force. See now, dear Lakshman, as I bring down the gods from heaven. Lakshman grabbed hold of Ram's arm and stopped him from releasing his arrow. With palms joined, he spoke gently to the infuriated Ram. You have always been dedicated to the good of all beings. Do not abandon your nature now, O Ram. Do not be swayed by anger. You should not destroy the worlds for one person's offense. Lords of this world are always just in their punishment. Therefore display your forbearance, for it is as deep as that of the earth itself. Be calm and consider the situation with care. Lakshmana pointed out that they could see only the footprints of a single Rakshasa. It appeared that someone else had fought against the demon, probably to protect Sita. Whoever had abducted Sita was obviously possessed of great power. Perhaps no one was able to prevent the kidnapping. After all, who would approve of the destruction or kidnapping of Ram's spouse? The gods and Gandharvas, the rivers, seas, mountains, and indeed all living beings were not capable of giving offense to Ram, any more than the priests set to sacrifice could offend the person for whom they were performing the ritual. Ram felt slightly pacified as Lakshman continued. Let us seek out the assistance of the great sages. With me by your side, we shall search the whole earth with all its mountains and forests. If we still do not find Sita, we shall go to the depths of the ocean, up to the realms of the gods, O Ram. We shall not rest until we find your beloved wife. Lakshman suggested that if still they did not find Sita, then Ram could let loose his venomous missiles upon the worlds. But first, he should control his anger and seek his wife through peaceful means. Otherwise, what example would he set for the world? If the earth's ruler immediately resorted to violence when under duress, then what would ordinary men do? Could they be expected to exercise any control when in distress? In this world, calamities visit everyone in due course of time, but they also disappeared again. Happiness and distress follow one another in swift succession. One should not give way to either. Even the gods were subject to suffering. One should neither rejoice nor grieve for material things, but with a peaceful mind, carry out one's duties. This was the path of everlasting happiness. Lakshman looked into Ram's eyes. O Ram, you have often instructed me in this way. Indeed, who can teach you, even if he is Brahaspati himself? I'm only trying now to awaken your intelligence, which has been dulled by grief. Dear brother, people like you do not give way to grief, even when faced with the gravest perils. Therefore, spare the worlds. Seek out only the sinful adversary who has stolen Sita. Ram put down his bow and replaced his arrow in its quiver. He was moved by his brother's beautifully worded advice. Controlling his anger, he thanked Lakshman and asked him what they should do next. Where should they begin to look? The two princes continued to walk south, discussing what to do. Soon they came upon Jatayu, lying upon the ground. Seeing from a distance the mountainous bird, drenched in blood, Ram exclaimed, Lakshman, here's a Rakshasa in the guise of a bird. Surely this beast has devoured Sita. I shall make short work of it with my fiery arrows. Ram fitted a razor-headed arrow to his bow and bounded towards Jatayu, but as soon as he recognized the great bird, he lowered his weapon. Jatayu, close to death, saw Ram coming and raised his head. Vomiting blood, he spoke in a strained voice, "O Ram, the godly Sita and indeed my life have both been snatched away by Ravana. I flew to her assistance and fought with the demon. Although I smashed his chariot and killed his horses, I was finally cut down by him." Jatayu then described what had taken place. Upon hearing the story, Ram fell, weeping to the ground. He embraced Jatayu and stroked his head in great pain. Ram cried out, "Alas! Who is more fortunate than I am? My sovereignty is lost. I am exiled. My wife is stolen, and now my father's friend lies mortally wounded, having tried his best to help me. How? Who is more unfortunate than I?" Ram questioned Jatayu, "Where did Ravana take Sita? What did she say as she was being dragged away? How powerful was the Rakshasa, and where was his abode?" Ram spoke wildly in a tearful voice. Jatayu looked at him fondly. Speaking in barely a whisper, he replied, "The demon conjured up a storm as he flew in the sky. As I contended with him, I soon became exhausted, being old and worn out. He then lopped off my wings. He sped away with his face pointing south." The bird lay gasping. He reassured Ram that Sita would soon be found. The Rakshasa had kidnapped her at an hour which was favorable for her return. Although he knew it not, Jatayu said, it was the Vinda, Vinda, the Vinda hour. Vinda. According to scripture, a treasure lost during that time is again recovered. I know a young man whose name is Vinda. I mean, that was his name for birth, Vinda. Jatayu told Ram that Ravana was the son of the sage Vishrava and the half-brother of Kuvera. Although he was immensely powerful, Ram would soon slay him. Jatayu was sure of it. As the old bird spoke, he felt his life departing, blood flowing continuously from his mouth. He looked at Ram with tears in his eyes, repeating Ram's name over and over. Jatayu gradually became silent. His head fell to the ground and his body slumped back. Ram stood with folded hands, looking at his father's dear friend. He cried out in anguish, "Speak more! O noble bird, speak more!" But Jatayu was dead. Ram gazed at him sorrowfully. Turning to Lakshman, he said, "Alas, this bird has laid down his life for my sake. Dear brother, it is clear that valiant souls who practice piety and virtue are found even in the lower species of life and not just among humans. The pain of seeing the vulture's death afflicts me as much as that caused by Sita's loss." Ram considered Jatayu to be as worthy of his worship as Dasarath. He asked Lakshman to fetch logs so they could build a funeral pyre. Ram looked at the bird and said, "You will attain unsurpassed realms of happiness, O king of the birds. Never again will you take birth in this mortal world of pain and suffering." The brothers placed Jatayu on the wood pile and set it alight. Ram personally recited the sacred mantras and performed the ritual, cremating Jatayu as he would his own relative. Both brothers then went to the Godavari and, after bathing in the river, offered its sacred water to Jatayu's departed soul. When the ritual was complete, Ram and Lakshman felt pleased, knowing that Jatayu had gone to divine regions of unending happiness. They fixed their minds on recovering Sita. Going in a southerly direction, they entered the deep forest, appearing like Vishnu and Indra going to encounter the Asuras. Lakshmana went ahead, wielding his long sword and hewing down the shrubs and creepers that blocked their progress. The forest was trackless and difficult to traverse, but the brothers moved swiftly. Distressed and eager to find Sita, they looked on all sides, but saw only dense forest. Lions roared and birds of prey screamed above them. Thick darkness enveloped them as they penetrated deep into the jungle. As they moved ahead vigorously and without fear, they began to perceive evil omens. Ram's left arm throbbed, and his mind became disturbed. Jackals howled, and crows emitted shrill cries. Ram cried, "Be wary, Lakshman. These signs definitely indicate some imminent danger." Even as he spoke, a loud noise suddenly resounded from ahead of them. It was deafening, and it filled the four quarters. Ram and Lakshman, with swords in hand, ran toward the sound. Here must be the demon responsible for taking Sita. They would soon dispatch him. Perhaps Sita was still there. The brothers raced ahead. They suddenly broke into a clearing and saw a colossal Rakshasa seated there, taller than the surrounding trees. The demon looked like a mountain peak. He had no neck or head, and his huge mouth was in his belly. The demon was dark blue in color and colored all over with sharp, bristling hair. On the top of his body was a single fearful eye, which blazed like fire. His long, pointed tongue darted in and out, licking his lips. He had arms 8 miles long, and they drew toward him all kinds of animals. As Ram and Lakshman looked on, the Rakshasa devoured bears, tigers, and deer, which he crammed into his gaping mouth. That was one paragraph. The brothers saw the Rakshasa from a distance of a mile. They looked in amazement. As they stood there, the demon saw them and reached out with his 2 arms, which snaked about like 2 enormous creepers. Tightly grasping both brothers, he lifted them high above the ground. Lakshmana cried out to Ram, "Free yourself, O Ram. Leave me as an offering to this devil. Make good your escape. I cannot release myself from this demon's clutches. After recovering Sita and the throne of Ayodhya, always remember me there." Already torn by anguish due to having allowed Sita to be captured, Lakshmana was overcome by the demon. Ram replied to his distraught brother, "Do not yield to fear, Lakshman. A man like you should never feel dejected." They're a good team. They keep, one falls down, they pick them up. The massive Rakshasa pulled the brothers toward him. "Who are you two?" With shoulders like those of bulls, dressed like ascetics, yet wielding swords and large bows. He boomed. "By the will of Providence, you have fallen within the range of my sight at a time when I stand oppressed by hunger. Your life is now of short duration." Ram felt despair. What would happen next? Was there no end to his suffering? He called out to Lakshman, "Powerful indeed is destiny. Calamity upon calamity is heaped upon us. We are now threatened with death, even before we could find the beautiful Sita. What should be done now?" The demon spoke again. "Today you too shall serve as my food. Exert yourself if you have any strength." Lakshmana, who had gathered himself together, became infuriated. He shouted to Ram, "The strength of this repulsive demon lies in his arms alone. Let us quickly cut off his vast arms with our swords." As Lakshman spoke, the Rakshasa roared and opened his mouth wide. He began drawing the brothers toward him. Without delay, they both brought their swords down upon his arms with great force. The razor-sharp weapons sliced through the demon's flesh, and his arms fell upon the ground. Releasing Ram and Lakshman, emitting a terrible bellowing scream which echoed for miles. The demon slumped back, bathed in a stream of blood which gushed from the stumps of his arms. He called out to the princes, "Who are you?" Lakshman replied, "We are the 2 sons of Dasrath in the line of Ikshvaku. This is Ram and I am Lakshmana. We are here at the behest of our noble father. While my mighty brother wandered in the forest, his consort was stolen away by a Rakshasa, whom we now seek. But who are you? Why do you reside in this forest in such a form, with a flaming mouth in your belly?" The demon became joyful upon hearing Lakshman speak. "Welcome, O tiger! among men. It is my good luck to see you here today. By good fortune only have my arms been severed by you. The Rakshasa, whose name was, what's his name? Starts with a K. Kabanda. Kabanda. Told the brothers his story. He had previously been a Gandharva. Once, out of pride in his divine beauty, he had laughed at a rishi named Ashtavakra, whose body was bent in 8 places. In order to free Kabandha from his pride, the rishi had pronounced a curse, turning the Gandharva into a Rakshasa. The Kabandha had begged for mercy, and the rishi had said, when Ram and Lakshman cremate you in a lonely forest, only then shall you be released from my curse. Kabandha continued, in the form of a Rakshasa, I ranged the forest. After once performing severe asceticism, I received from Brahma the boon of a long life. Becoming fearless, I then challenged Indra to battle. That invincible god hurled his thunderbolt at me. It hit me and forced my head, arms, and legs into my trunk. Although I begged him, Indra would not kill me, saying that the words of Brahma proved true. I asked Indra how I would survive in such a form, a mere trunk, with no head or limbs. Out of compassion, he gave me these 2 arms and this huge mouth. He then said, when Ram and Lakshman sever your arms, you will ascend to heaven. Thus I sat here, stretching out my arms and pulling into my mouth lions, leopards, bears, tigers, and deer. I always thought to myself, one day Ram and Lakshman will fall within my grip. Kabanda implored the princes to throw him in a pit and cremate him. Ram asked that he first tell them if he knew anything about Sita's whereabouts. He said to the Rakshasa, we only know the name of Sita's abductor. We do not know where he is, nor even his appearance. Kabanda said he would be able to give them good advice as soon as he could assume his original celestial form, and because only then would he be possessed of his former divine intelligence. The brothers dug a great pit next to the demon and placed in it many logs. They pushed Kabanta into the pit and set fire to the logs. As the Rakshasa's body burned, he looked like a large lump of ghee with fat running down all sides. Suddenly, from the pit, there arose a shining personality dressed in blazing yellow garments and wearing a bright garland. A splendid aerial chariot drawn by swans appeared, and Kabanda took his seat on it. He then spoke to Ram, O Raghava, I shall now tell you how you shall recover Sita. One who has fallen into misfortune is served by another in the same circumstance. You must befriend someone who has suffered a similar fate as you. Kabanda told Ram that he should seek out the monkey Sugriva. This monkey lived in a nearby mountain with 4 friends. He was powerful, intelligent, cultured, and true to his promise. His enraged brother Vali had exiled him for the sake of sovereignty, and he was in need of help. By forming a pact with Sugriva, Ram would render him good, and in return, the monkey would assist Ram in finding Sita. Kabanda went on. Having restored the kingdom to Sugriva, the monkey will send out thousands of his followers to search every part of the world, O Ram. Even if your wife has been taken to the highest or lowest planet, she will be found and returned to you with Sugriva's help. Kabanda then told Ram how he can find Sugriva. With his divine vision, the Gandharva could see exactly what Ram would encounter, and he told him in detail. Ram would meet with the monkeys near the hermitage of Rishi Matanga on the side of Lake Pampa, where there now lived only an old ascetic lady named Shabari. Shabari. After explaining everything, Kabanda remained in the sky, shining like the sun. Ram thanked him and said, "Please depart now for your own abode. You have rendered me excellent service." Kabanda bowed his head and offered prayers to the brothers, recognizing who they were. His golden chariot then rose upwards. As he disappeared into the skies, the Gandharvas called out, "Enter an alliance with Sugriva." Ram and Lakshman immediately headed west as suggested by Kabanda. After some time, they reached Lake Pampa and stayed one night by its side. In the morning, the princes looked about and located the site of Matunga's hermitage. It was hemmed in by trees laden with fruits and flowers. Varieties of colorful birds played in the trees, and their singing was beautiful. Deer, rabbits, and other timid creatures moved about peacefully. Just 2 pages left. The princes walked over the soft grass and soon found the hut where Shabari lived. She was seated outside the hut and rose respectfully as they approached. Joining her palms, the ascetic lady fell down before the brothers and clasped their feet. Shabari offered them grass mats and brought water to wash their feet, saying, "You are welcome." Ram and Lakshman sat at ease, and Ram spoke. "Oh, noble lady, is your asceticism proceeding without impediment? Have you mastered your senses? Are you fully freed from anger, and is your diet controlled? O gentle one, has your service to your guru borne fruit?" Shabri looked at Ram with tear-filled eyes. She had been practicing austerities and yoga for many years. Being fully self-realized, she could understand the identities of the two princes. She spoke in a pleasing voice. "Today, the full fruition of my asceticism and meditation has been attained. Today, my life is perfected. My teachers have now been served and satisfied, and I've achieved heaven. Indeed, O Ram, after seeing your divine form, I shall reach those realms that know no decay." Shabri told Ram that her preceptor, Matanga, had not long before ascended to heaven. Before leaving, he had informed Shabari that Ram, accompanied by Lakshman, would soon come there. She should serve the two princes, and then, when they left, she would rise up to the eternal regions. With shaking hands, Shabari began offering the brothers fruits and vegetables of every description. After graciously accepting Shabari's offerings, Ram asked to be shown the hermitage. "I wish to see for myself the glory of your guru," he said. "Please show me everywhere he lived and worshipped." Shabari took the brothers to where Matanga had his altar. It shone with a brilliant luster which illuminated the surrounding area. In a pond nearby were the waters of the seven oceans, brought there by Matunga's ascetic powers. Flower garlands made by the sage lay in the ground, still fresh and unfaded. After she had shown the brothers around, Shabari said, "I long now to join the great rishis in heaven. I am ever their servant. Please permit me to leave, O Ram." Ram and Lakshman looked around, saying, "Wonderful." Ram turned to the old ascetic woman. "You have properly honored us, O blessed lady. Please depart at will." Shabari bowed low to Ram and approached the sacrificial fire, cast herself into it. As her body was consumed, she arose in a brilliant ethereal form. Adorned with celestial jewels and garlands, she appeared resplendent. Like a streak of lightning, she rose into the sky, illuminating the whole region. She went upwards towards the holy realm, now inhabited by the sages whom she had always served. Having watched Shabri depart, Ram spoke to Lakshman. This hermitage shines with splendor. By simply coming here, we have been freed of the stain of sinful karma. Dear brother, surely now our fortunes will change. I feel that we shall soon meet with Sugriva. Ram felt joy as he anticipated meeting the monkey. He remembered Kabunda's words. Soon Sita would be found, he felt sure. The two brothers left the hermitage and walked around the edge of the lake, carefully surveying the area. The sounds of peacocks and parrots perched on the trees nearby echoed all around. It was noon, and the princes took their midday bath in the lake. The water was crystal clear and covered with innumerable lotuses, making it appear like a many-colored carpet. The lake had gently sloping banks of golden sand covered with tall trees. Long creepers reached down to the water, and shining fishes nibbled at their ends. As the brothers continued around the bank of the Pampa, which stretched for miles, they came to the foot of the Rishimook Mountain. Ram gazed up at it. Surely this is the mountain where Sugriva dwells. O Lakshmana, my heart is torn with grief for Sita. I feel I cannot live much longer unless the princess is found. Please quickly search for the monkey. Thinking of Sita, Ram burst into a loud wail. Where was Janaka's daughter now? Perhaps she had pined away in his absence, dying of grief. As Ram looked around at the beautiful scenery, his pain only heightened. Everything reminded him of Sita. The peahen's mating dance brought to mind the way Sita would approach him in love. The fragrant breeze was like the scented breath of his beloved wife. Yellow champak flowers resembled her shining silk garments. Bright red tree blossoms looked like the princess's full lips. Deer moved about with their mates, piercing Ram's heart as he remembered how he would wander with Sita. The white swans reminded Ram of his wife's complexion. Indeed, he saw her everywhere he looked. That's this raga topic again. Ram cried out in anguish, his heart burning with the pain of separation. Lakshmana comforted his brother, again reassuring him that Sita would be found. As he spoke to Ram, his voice rose in anger. The sinful Ravana will find no shelter, even if he enters the darkest region of the universe. I shall seek him out. Either the Rakshasa will yield Sita or meet with his end in my hands. Throw off your grief, dear brother, and together we shall strenuously exert ourselves to find Sugriva. High-class men never give way to despondency, even when faced with the most terrible calamities. Rather, they become more and more determined to overcome their difficulties. Final paragraph. Ram was heartened by Lakshman's assurances. The two brothers continued their search for Sugriva. End of chapter. Now there's a few things. There's one of the refrains that's like I suspect it's to teach us something because it's repeated. And high-minded persons or virtuous persons never yield to despondency. Like there was a question in the car ride over here. How to deal with negative people and negative circumstances. Or take shelter. Virtuous, high-minded persons have shelter. That's how they stay fixed. Because of that shelter, then the negative circumstances can be dealt with in a proper way. So mentioned this several times in the course of narrating all this. We're more than halfway finished with this rendering. Hearing was the itihasas, Ramayana and Mahabharata, were is part of life of cultured people, and even simple people were cultured by that same hearing from the brahmanas, the recitation, because the Um, Anushtup is the meter in which Ramayana was composed, and it was actually meant for singing. And so the brahmanas would sing it, whether they would explain it or not, just sing it and hearing it again and again. The sound vibration has its message, and the vibration itself has a way of elevating from lower nature, the lower modes, to a higher mode of goodness and transcendence. Just the sound vibration has that impact. And one's heroes, because everybody needs a hero. The modern people have their heroes, Bollywood stars or something or something or something. They have their heroes. But cultured persons, spiritually cultured persons, particularly, have their spiritual heroes, and Ram is that hero. And it just hearing and hearing. There's sadness, but there's mitigation of that sadness by hearing, because you know good always wins over evil, or light is stronger than darkness. I remember as a young student pondering, why is it that always the good guys win? Because sometimes it looks like the bad guys win, but it's only temporary, because later on the good guys win. So why is that? Because light is stronger than darkness. The mode of goodness will prevail. And those that have faith in the mode of goodness stay with the mode of goodness. And what anchors you or lifts you to the mode of goodness is transcendence. That's the whole teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam, uh, in Canto 1, Chapter 2. There's um, this narration of the stages of bhakti that starts with Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting of topics of Bhagavan, and that Tadara Justamo Bhava Kama Lobhada Yeshi Jeta Ayartaya Anabhidham Stitpam Sattve Prasidati. One becomes situated in goodness just by hearing Bhagavad Gita or Hari Katha. The lower modes subside, and the higher modes, Stitvam Sattve, the Sattva Guna, becomes established, and the lower modes become diminished just by hearing. Just by hearing. It's very simple. And people that are in the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance, they don't like to hear. The ignorance people, they sleep. And the passionate people are busy running around, prospering, getting more stuff. And at least as a regulated part of life, hearing Harikatha, it lifts from those lower modes to mode of goodness. And in that mode of goodness, one can contemplate the purpose of life. Because that's happening in this chapter we just read several times. Despondency and anger and different emotions prevailing, and reminders of virtue, the life of virtue, the life of duty, and you want to protect Sita, so protect Sita. Don't forget. That's our mission. I'm with you. Let's do it. That's a friend. I mean, they're brothers, but in real life, it's very simple, really simple. Your best friend is one that reminds you of Krishna. And to be somebody's best friend, remind them of Krishna. Now, when you remind others of Krishna, it doesn't mean you don't take into consideration they have a body and they have a mind and there's emotions and there's feelings and there's stuff moving around. That's taken into consideration. But while taking that into consideration, doing with your friends or your children or your relatives or whoever, at the center is remind them of Krishna. It's exactly what Ram and Lakshman are doing. They're brothers, and they have a friendship. But they're one gets carried away, and the other gets carried away, as if they're mortals. They're not, feeling this and feeling that, and something, contemplating this, contemplating that, and then get back to the middle of the road. What's the middle of the road? Take shelter of the higher duty of life done in a virtuous way. The course correction is there again and again, with really nice words and uh, different words, different phrases in Valmiki Ramayana may resonate more at one time, and another set of words resonate more another time. But it's all leading towards this, reminding one of, in this case, reminding one of Ram, and uh, the life of steadfastness, steadfastly pursuing a life of virtue. And the bhakti means you do that for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, not just virtue standing alone, but virtue connected with the reservoir of everything. That's Ramayana. So though Ram Navami is over, we're still reading. And I think,
It's not long gone.
yeah, not long gone. We'll continue, for the duration that I'm here in Houston, and then we'll take up another topic. Coming shortly after that is Lord Sringadev's appearance. So we'll probably read from the Bhagavatam about Lord Sringadev coming to protect Prahlad. So let's see if we have some discussion.
Maharaji, I'd like to continue in our discussion, but I want to know how to reach the mode of goodness.
How to?
Sorry.
How to reach the mode of goodness?
Yeah, in terms of that, you don't get irritated. Let's assume you are in goodness, but at times you get distracted and you feel envy of somebody, or you feel irritated of the fact that people are not adapting to the change which you are trying to bring in, or something like that.
Well, here's three things. We mentioned one of the three things. I'll say it again. Tado rajas tamo bhava kama lobha dayasya. It's a verse from the Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2. Rajas and tamas are the lower modes, and they can be mitigated or eliminated by harikatha. That's one. Not to say you're not doing that, but that's how to. Is by absorption. It's like if you want to get warm, stand near a fire. You associate with that which is transcendental, and the higher mode becomes lifted and the lower modes become diminished. You get warm. You get light through the light of the Bhagavat. That's one. Another is know the difference between light and darkness, or the goodness. What is the difference between goodness and passion, ignorance? Generally, the path to ignorance is through the doorway of passion. It's from Bhagavad Gita. Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajoguna, some Udvava, Rajoguna. By contact with the mode of passion, it's dominoes. From Kama comes Kroda. So where does that Kroda come from? It comes from Kama. And where does Kama come from? Contact with passion. So when you have an understanding of how the domino effect works, and you see something is starting, you catch it right at the very beginning. You put on the brake pedal. I'm not going to go there. So if you're not going to go there, you have to go somewhere. And so it's the cultivation, it's knowledge and detachment, in short. Attachment is where the anger arises. Kama. I want to be the enjoyer. And this isn't bringing me enjoyment. It's making me angry. Krodesha. So knowledge can bring detachment. So your careful study of Bhagavad Gita, and then you follow it. I mean, knowledge is the beginning, but then you have to apply knowledge. And you practice applying knowledge. and you'll find yourself miraculously becoming free from those lower modes. Cultivation of knowledge and applying that knowledge. Jnana vijnanam astikyam. That's Brahminical quality. Jnana vijnanam astikyam. Astikyam means religiousness. Chapter 18, the quality of goodness, is characterized by that. Jnanam vijnanam, knowledge and applied knowledge. Then it becomes you. The lower modes are diminished, and the higher mode becomes your mode of life. Knowledge and detachment, and applying that. You steer away from not the event that's triggering the anger, but you look within, and you turn, with intelligence, you turn the mind to another place. What's that other place? So this is the third answer: service to Krishna. That's what we discussed in the car ride. There's a power in bhakti that one does not experience unless the desire to be in relationship, in a service relationship with Krishna is there. In that service say it the other way. In the service relationship with Krishna, you're protected. Those three. Harikatha, knowledge and detachment that's applied, knowledge that's applied and detachment in service mode. And you cultivate abhyasa yoga. It's all there. Here's another one: good association. Association with those that are like that. In the world, there's lots of people that are not like that. But keep close, very close, intimate association with those who are like that. That have control of the lower modes, and they're directed towards service to Krishna mood. And then you're good. You're on the trajectory is yours. Stay with it. Okay. Anything else? Come on. He's got something.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Um, the Ramayana pastimes are very, very sweet. When I was a child, since then, I love Ramayana. We being Krishna's devotees, of course, the Supreme Lord is same, in incarnation of Lord Ram, or, Krishna himself coming in his, wonderful pastimes. So my question is, if someone, is attracted really to Lord Ram's pastimes, he being a Krishna devotee,
No problem.
what could be the destination?
Everything depends upon your understanding of tattva, or that which is the source of everything. So I'll explain what that means. Supposing somebody doesn't have an understanding that the Srimad Bhagavatam teaches Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, of all the incarnations, Krishna is the source of them all. Ramadi Murtu Shukala Niyamena Tishtan, etc. Krishna is the source of them all. When it doesn't have that understanding, then and they become very attached to Ram, then they're likely to go to Ayodhya, or the abode of Lord Ram. Now, what about someone that does have an understanding of Krishna's position as the source of everything, and they have a particular affinity for Ram? Where's their destination? Because that's your question. I would suggest you have a conversation with two people that are in the US and maybe a third. Nityananda Pran is one who he is head over heels in affinity for Ram. He certainly knows the relationship that Krishna is the source of everyone, of all the avatars. including Ram. And as a result, for example, he's reading Rupa Goswami's writings that came from Lord Chaitanya to understand better about Ramayana, because his attachment is to Ram. Now, specifically, your question is, what's the destination? And my answer is, it depends on where your affinity is. Depends on where your affinity is. So those who have affinity for Krishna and Ram, they, it's up to the Lord, because he'll appear to them and carry them to whatever the destination is that they're attracted to. So it's going to be different for different persons, in other words. And it's not a cookie cutter answer. There's this bucket and you're going to go into this bucket or that bucket. It's reciprocation between the Lord and his devotee, where that soul will go to. Okay, we're going to go online.
We have two questions from Shashimuki Mataji. In Valmiki Ramayana, it is stated that Ravana grabbed Sita's hand and abducted her to Lanka. I believe in Vedic times, if a married woman was touched by another man, intentionally or not, she loses her chastity. After knowing this, how did Lord Ram get Sita and bring her to his kingdom and then give the Agni Parikshaya? Could you please explain?
Yeah, I understand. Two things. There are multiple Ramayanas, and the multiple Ramayanas there are multiple legitimate Ramayanas, or authorized Ramayanas, or recognized Ramayanas by Vaishnavas. And that particular exchange between Ravan and Sita is different. Some it's a false Sita, different. Some, he carried away her whole cottage, not her. He didn't touch her. There's different versions. Now, specific to whatever the version is that says he took her hand, or like we read here, he, with two arms, we read it yesterday, with two arms out of his 20, he clutched Sita. So does that mean that she's no longer, because she's been touched, her chastity is gone? Well, some persons may have that view, and it's for that reason that Ram wanted to clarify, because her mind didn't go there. Her chastity wasn't within the mind, it was otherwise. So, let's go back. And when Ahalya had her interaction with Indra, Gautama accepted her back after she had undergone austerities, etc. And one can become cleansed if even, it wasn't just she was touched by, she reciprocated with, knowingly. So I don't know all those rules, and there's probably different people read the rules differently, although they're the same rules. Therefore, Ram wanted to verify for everyone's inspection, Sita was pure and not contaminated by any touch of Ravan.
Second question is also related to the first one. Is this bothering Sita when she is in Ashokavana before she knew that Ram is looking for her through Hanuman?
Did it bother her? She was always counting on Ram's coming to redeem her. I mean, before Hanuman came, she was expecting it would happen.
Two questions from Sanchari.
Okay.
how do we reconcile the all renunciation quality of the Lord and the transcendental attachment Lord Ram is exhibiting in his relationship with Sita?
Easy. He's detached from material and attached to spiritual. And second is it's a pastime. Detachment means detached from the temporary. It's Bhagavad Gita. What is called renunciation is the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. That's from the living entity towards the Supreme. Linking oneself with the Supreme is attachment. And that means detachment from the temporary. And the rest is pastime. Next.
Also, is Lord Ram the only one who publicly exhibits so much love towards his consort? Meaning, from my limited understanding, with at least Krishna in his Dwaraka Leela, there doesn't seem to be any pastimes that show such attachment to his wives.
Read Brihad Bhagavatamrita. You'll take back those words. Next. That's it. Anyone else here? Going once. Nothing. What's your favorite story from the whole of Ramayana, the battle, right? Yeah. Which part of the, because you heard that question earlier. Is there some part of the battle that? Okay. What is it about that part where Lakshman, because it happened twice. So which part of Lakshman being revived is how everyone is grieving, or Hanuman to the rescue, or what's the part that's nicest?
Hanuman to the rescue.
Okay. Okay. Do you like the part when Hanuman went to get the herbs and he was challenged and he had a big battle and
Yes.
he defeated, he had to get hurried back and
Yes.
he couldn't find the herbs, so he brought the whole mountain.
Mhm.
Invincible Hanuman. Okay. Okay. I like the part where Vibhishan knows Ravana's tricks. And he knows that Indrajit is doing a yagya, and he has inside information, and he helps bring victory by that inside information, and helps people overcome uncertainty or obstacle or danger or something. He's a good devotee. Vibhishan. Yeah, more.
Yeah, one just came in. This is from Radha Vallabh Prabhu.
Okay.
In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 18, Text 22, purport, Srila Prabhupada states that Sita kidnapped was an expansion of Maya or Durga Devi. I think it was more of a comment.
Sure. That's not Valmiki Ramayana, but Prabhupada does include some of the non-Valmiki Ramayana, other Ramayanas comments, and it has to do with. And I don't remember which one it is, but one of the Ramayanas specifies that before Sita was kidnapped, Agni did a switcheroo. He changed out the real Sita for Maya Sita. And so the personality that that Ravana kidnapped was Maya Sita. And the real Sita was with Agni. And when Sita entered the fire, Agni came carrying Sita, or bearing Sita, or accompanying Sita, and the real Sita came out of the fire. So, and it's, there's different Ramayanas who say something similar, and there's something very similar in Tirupati about Vedavati and all of that. So there's a lot of different iterations of who it was that Ravana kidnapped, and how do we understand that? How can it's something that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. This is for those of you that don't know so much yet about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In a past time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling in South India. He visited a place where there's a Ram Bhakta. And so he went to that town or place, and the Ram Bhakta invited him to come to his place for lunch, a Brahmana. So Lord Chaitanya agreed, said, let me do my midday duties. So when he got to the man's place, the man was just sitting there in meditation. And Lord Chaitanya asked him, my dear Brahmana, what is your intention? He said, just now, Lakshman has gone to the forest to get edibles for Sita to cook. As soon as he comes back, we'll prepare your lunch. And Lord Chaitanya understood. He was in a spontaneous mood of devotion. It was a kind of meditation for him. It was actually what he was experiencing on the heart level or the spiritual level. So after some time, the man began cooking. And after Lord Chaitanya accepted the meal, he asked the Brahmin, so now you please take your meal. And the Brahmin said, I'm fasting until death. How can I eat knowing that Sita has been kidnapped? And again, it was his spontaneous mood of Ram Bhakti. So Lord Chaitanya said, my dear Brahmin, take my word for it. I assure you, Sita was not kidnapped. It was another form that was kidnapped. I assure you. So please stop your fasting and continue with your life of service to Ram. And the Brahmin accepted his word. He trusted him. And so later, Lord Chaitanya, leaving that place, went further in South India, came to a place where there's a Kurma Purana, and found in the Kurma Purana the section where it says Amaya Sita was taken. So he had a copy made and went back to it was hundreds of miles, when he went back to the Brahmana's home and showed him, see, I told you, here it is from Kurma Purana. Sita was not kidnapped. It was Amaya Sita. An interesting detail is when Lord Chaitanya first came to that Brahmin's home, he was constantly chanting Ram's name, constantly chanting Ram's name, constantly chanting Ram's name. And when he left, he was constantly chanting Ram's name. When he came back the second time, he was constantly chanting Krishna's name. So he asked the Brahmin, what happened? He said, from my childhood, I've been chanting Ram's name, but by your association, I'm now chanting Krishna's name. I don't know why. So Lord Chaitanya's influence was Krishna Bhakti. Although it doesn't mean, back to your question, doesn't mean that as Ram Bhakti disappeared, but Ram Bhakti became folded into as Krishna Bhakti by Lord Chaitanya's association. Another.
Yes,
I thought if I talked enough, we get another.
we have two things from Archana Vaidya.
Okay.
First one is a comment. Sri Ram's display of transcendental emotions of love, anger, separation, and worry are very heart-touching.
Yes.
Thank you for reading.
Yeah.
And her second thing is, also last evening's explanation about female characters turning the story was understandable about why the Lord killed demonesses. But it is hard to understand with Sita Devi's attraction to deer. Could you kindly comment?
Yeah. The commentators, this is what I've learned from Govindaraj. Govindaraj is a celebrated 13th century commentator on Ramayana. And in other words, several centuries after Jamunacharya and Sri Shailapurna and Ramanujacharya, etc., several generations, several centuries later. His commentary was a collection of all the other commentators and what they had to say. And what they had to say on this topic. Just read the question one more time. I want to make sure I'm hitting the target. Just the last part.
It is hard to understand Sita Devi's attraction to deer.
Yeah. Their explanation goes like this. From the moment that Sita wanted the deer, it was the first time in her life that she desired something separate from Ram. Previously, so she was exhibiting the behavior, the characteristic of a jiva who turns away from Krishna or turns away from the Lord. Turning away from the Lord means having interest in something separate from. It was, I want the deer. And then, just kept carried on from there. Lakshman said, no, she just ignored him. And then she, insulted him. And it was like, get the deer. And Ram, if you can't get the deer, then kill it. And if you kill it, then we have the deer skin. We can sit on the deer skin. We go back to Ayodhya. So that's not Sita. That's not Sita. That's a living entity that desires separate enjoyment. And that, according to this commentary, is the whole pastime of the Lord seeing a living entity going away and the Lord wanting that living entity to come back. And then anointing Guru Hanuman to bring Sita back.
Can we control this, or we have no control?
We're making choices. We don't have control. Our choice can be independent enjoyment or service in relation to. We can't control the circumstance, but we can make choices. And when circumstance X, choose service. And circumstance Y and Z and ABC and whatever it is, service. And if that's the consistent choice, then there's the internal spiritual potency. You're protected. Like your question twice asked, you're protected in that mood of service. But supposing you stray and go over, like, there's something over there, I want to enjoy it. Well, that's a risk. And here comes Ravan. Take one away. And then the Lord, Ram, they explain, the commentators explain, in a parallel way. Of course, there's the Leela part, but a living entity that's gone astray, and what the Lord feels when a living entity has gone astray. And then the complication that comes for that living entity when you go astray. It's not nice. It's not nice. Anyway, so that's Govindaraja's explanation, which is kind of at least a group of Sri Vaishnava commentators and lovers of Ram and Ramayana explain. It's separate enjoyment principle. It's not Sita. And she's under a whammy, the illusion of being an enjoyer of something. And then she makes all kinds of really dumb choices. Go for it anyway, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then there's consequences for that kind of thing. Is that it? Okay. Lots of lessons. Ramayana is really powerful medicine. You like Ramayana. Okay, here comes the microphone. What part of mine do you like the most?
Yeah, so I would also like to share mine.
Okay.
So when Vishwamitra takes the two brothers all the way to forest and all that pastimes, ultimately to Mithila. So when Lord Ram, participate in the Swayamvar, and all
Yes.
the four brother gets married, and before that, meeting Mother Sita in the Pushpa Vatika, and taking the tour of the whole city, and so that part I liked very much.
Uh-huh. One of the parts I know that Nityananda Pran likes is the very beginning section of Sundarakanda. Because the beginning section of Sundarakanda is the preparation of Guru to perform the function on behalf of God. Everything that happens, you know, Jambavan speaking and his body getting bigger, and then going to the Mandara hill and all the things that happen. There's, this and then that and then that. And all of it, the commentary says it's the Guru's preparation for performing the mission on behalf of God. And then, the crossing of the sea and those three things that come. And it's also indicating challenges and opportunities, and how Guru faces those challenges and opportunities. Of course, it's a story. It's not just fiction, but there's lessons within the Leela. Ask him sometime, or there's recordings where he's described all this. I know he really likes it, and I know one that another devotee really likes. Um, you probably heard it. Were you in Kishkinda, the Dandak Yatra? No. There's recordings, video recording. Um, the, the different meanings of twice Sita placed a blade of grass between herself and Ravan. The meaning, something like 9 or 19 or some number of different meanings embedded in what's that blade of grass placed before him, in between them. Different meanings. Because poetic. There's a poetic, but poetry can be unpacked and then put back together, and there's the blade of grass. And then she says what she says, but just the gesture placing the blade of grass. It comes from the commentators that enjoy poetry, the poetry of Ramayana. The hostess has to speak.
Suppose we have multiple options. How do we know which is the right option for?
Mahajano Yena Katasa Panta.
Pardon?
The question you're asking
Yeah.
is asked in Mahabharata.
Okay.
The scene is the Yaksha is confronting Yudhishthira. You can't take water. You have to answer my questions. You know that passage? You don't know the passage. Mahabharata. The Pandavas are very thirsty.
Yeah.
So they go to a lake, and they hear a voice. You can't take water without answering my questions. Yeah. So then they take the water anyway, and they pass out like they're as if dead. Yudhishthira finally comes. So the four brothers are down, and he's the one remaining. The Yaksha comes out. It's Yamaraj in the disguise of a Yaksha. You know what Yakshas are? They're very fierce warriors. But he was living in a lake, and it was Yamaraj. It was Yamaraj testing his son. So he asked him a series of questions. And one of those questions is your question.
Oh.
It goes something like this. In codes of the Dharma, sometimes there's conflict between something that is to be done and something that is not to be done, and you can't do them both, so what do you do? It's not the same, but it's quite similar. Many options, and how do you choose? Yudhishthira's answer, what you say is true. It's sometimes very complex how to know what to do.
Yeah.
And then he says, by the example set by the Mahajans, the great souls. Mahajana yena kata gata sapanta. You follow the path, panta, of the Mahajans, and then you can reach the goal. Then you'll know. And without that reference to the Mahajans, the great souls, you won't know. You'll be doing guesswork. So how do you know what the Mahajans? Well, you have to read the scriptures. And you have to have someone guiding you to understand the scriptures properly. That's how you can know. Or in our simple language, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. You know those three, right? Guru,
To ask Guru.
Guru, Sadhu, that's the Mahajans, the great souls,
Yeah,
and Shastra.
they guide you.
Yeah, scripture. So we follow those three. And so, and when you don't know, you look to those three. What are examples? And try to get the big picture, not just cherry pick this one I like. Because there may be the big picture of different circumstances, and sometimes life is complex. Here's a really nice one. We were just discussing with devotees from China on this topic. The pastime just after Govardhan Leela is Varuna, messenger of Varuna, kidnapping Nanda Maharaj. Right?
Yeah.
Chapter 28, Canto 10. It's a Dwadasi day. He's a Vaishnav, worshipper of Narayan. So he was going to bathe on the Dwadasi morning before breaking fast for the Dwadasi break fast. But so it was one of those situations where the sun, the moon moves through the 27 nakshatras, not in a full day. It goes in 22 hours. So he was to break, it was a rule. It was one of those, what you're asking. You're supposed to break the fast within a certain period of time, according to the moon passing through a nakshatra. That's what the Dwadasi means. When Ekadasi ends and Dwadasi begins, there's this little juncture. But it was still, that the sun hadn't come up yet. And so another injunction is you don't take bath in the sacred river while it's dark. When the sun comes up, that's when you take your bath. So it was do this and don't do that, and don't do that and do this. So he didn't break the rule, but because he knew the rules, he was just bathing on the proper time. But the agent of Varuna didn't know, and he kidnapped him and took him to Varuna's abode. That's an example. So you follow, that's a detail. You follow the great souls. Follow the great souls. Mahajan or Mahatma, another meaning the same. And who is a Mahatma? Mahatmanas tamam parta daivim prakritim ashrata. They take shelter of Daivi Prakriti, spiritual potency. They're fully immersed in service to the Supreme Lord, fully immersed, never a moment. Those persons you follow. And if you're following those persons, you're okay. The tendency is to follow the mind. The mind says this, whoop, and then the mind says that, whoop, and then the mind says something else. And then you're spun out. What should I do? Find a Mahajan and follow. Yeah. Let's have the microphone.
Yeah. Can you tell us the story again? Because I have forgotten
Which
the
one?
story, the Yudhishthir and the
Okay. Yaksha.
Yeah, no, Mahakal. No, sorry.
Yaksha.
Yeah, whatever. What is his name? Yaksha.
Yaksha.
So the four brothers are dead. Yudhishthir is the only one alive, and then how does he get all the four brothers alive again?
He's ready to take water. The Yaksha comes out of the water and confronts him. Said, "Don't take water till you answer my questions." Yes, sir. So there's this dialogue, some number of questions from the Yaksha, who is Yamaraj. He's just testing his son, and he answers perfectly, gets an A in his exam, and he gets to drink water. And one of those questions is her question.
Yeah. And then all the four of his
They get
brothers come
revived.
alive, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. They're not dead, they're like knocked out.
Okay.
What was the question? What were those questions that you have
I don't remember them all, but I'll tell you what.
in general?
I'll tell you what. When questions come up during these periods of time, I do some research, and then I'll read out the answer. Because so there's an evening discussion that starts at 6:30, and I'll get the exact language from Mahabharata and read it out. And if you give your contact information to this young man over here, okay, well, I'll give it to him because it's really easy just to send a file as in by WhatsApp, and he'll forward it to you, and you forward it to her, and then you'll have the answer, even if you can't attend the class. It's the whole dialogue between the Yaksha and Yudhishthira.
I just want to know in general,
It has to do with Dharma, because he's Dharma Raj. And Yamaraj is, he knows Dharma, and he's testing his son to see if he knows Dharma. But he knows Dharma. So that's the general, is questions about Dharma. When should you do this? When should you do that? When there's a conflict between this and that, what do you do? That's the general type. Yeah.
The interesting question is like Yaksha is asking, people are dying left and what is the most surprising thing in this world? So
Yeah, that's one of them. That's right. Okay. Okay. In this world, there are many mysteries. What's the greatest mystery? What's the most perplexing thing in all of life? And Yudhishthira says the most perplexing thing is everyone dies, and everyone is thinking, I'm not going to die. I mean, something like that. Something like that. Yeah. Go ahead.
She's asking what is destiny when everything depends on karma. We are all doing karma cycle, everything's going on. So what is the destiny? What is the
I
meaning
think
of
that was a nice topic for the 8th evening. What is destiny? Your friends.
Yes.
What is destiny? Okay, but I'll give a short answer. And if you really want to get to detail, we'll come by on the 8th evening. We can say what destiny isn't, and then we'll say what destiny is. Destiny isn't that there's a plate of sweets that someone brought and offered to the Lord, and they're just going to sit there. It's just destined. Or one person's going to come and eat the whole thing, and it's like it's going to happen because it's destiny. That's not like events are not already predetermined. Rather, this is to our discussion, we have free will choices to make. What destiny is action reaction. Something coming my way because of something in the past. It's destined that something's going to come my way. How I respond to that something is not destiny. That's free will choice. Well, by my free will choice, I'm determining my next destiny. But that something is coming my way, we'll say the same thing in a different way. Supposing somebody's born and they have, their astrological chart can be calculated, and There's this influence, and that. That's destiny. But how you respond to this influence, that influence, that's free will. Wait. I want to say something more on this. Then you just hold your one question. Okay, but I want to say, she has something further. Supposing you know it's going to rain. This is Prabhupada's example. Supposing you know it's going to rain. Then you have a choice. You can carry an umbrella or not. Destiny is it's going to rain. Due to this and that and the other, it's going to rain. Influences. Something's going to happen. That's destiny. How you respond to it. And the destiny is something, 1322 Bhagavad Gita. You can write it down and look it up later. Sad asad yoni janmasu. We're creating our own destiny. Sad asad yoni janmasu. We're creating our good fortune, ill fortune. Good fortune, destiny. Ill fortune, destiny. How you respond, that's not destiny. No, how you respond is not destiny. No. I'm not bound by my karma to make my free will choices like this or like that. No, let's say I was born in America and my mother and father were not vegetarian. So it's not destiny that I have to be not vegetarian. I made choices. It wasn't karma that I made that choice. I made that choice. It's not destiny that I was going to become a devotee. I made a choice. And that was through association and so forth and so on. But I didn't have to become a devotee. I made a choice. I went to a certain college. I made a choice. Now, at that college where I went, there was devotees. It wasn't like destined that I went to a college that had devotees, but the Lord gave me the opportunity. This is, my understanding. Due to previous activity, I had the opportunity to continue bhakti in this life. Same for you. Same for every one of us here. And then we made some choices, yes or no, or maybe, or little, or more, or less. Those are free will choices. Destiny is some opportunity, good or bad, good fortune, ill fortune. And then we make choices. That's not destined. The choices we make is not destiny. So now,
Yeah, the choices we make are destiny. The choices we make, that's not destiny. Right?
That's correct.
But we create our destiny by picking up the choice.
Yes. By the choice I make, I'm creating my next destiny.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Thank you.
Predominantly, it's something like interactive games, which nowadays are coming up.
Say it again. We give him the microphone so we can.
I'm talking about the interactive games which are coming up, which are in the market now. It's like
I don't know about those
you
games.
choose, and then a new storyline comes in and play, right?
Anyway,
and then you move forward.
Behind that, there's a programmer.
Yeah, there's a program.
so we are rich now, right?
Okay. Well, it's a lively group this morning, now midday. And I think we're going to close up. Now, I brought some Mahaprasadam, and I think that was offered to the deities, but can I take this with me?
Yes, please.
Because this box is nearly empty, and Damodar will make sure that